Discover KDH Collective's Leaning into Therapy podcast, an enlightening exploration of therapeutic approaches and evidence-based protocols. Join us as we delve into the vast landscape of therapeutic interventions, guided by the belief that collective intelligence surpasses individual expertise. Led by Katie Holmes, a licensed professional counselor with 16 years in private practice. This series offers valuable insights, expertise, and training from a team of skilled therapists. Prepare to immerse yourself in the world of therapy, created exclusively for therapists by therapists. So, Brynne, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. So Marielle is the creator of this beautiful course and pulled me in because of my specific work with people with personality features. So I do a lot of skills work, a lot of trauma work with people who have experienced attachment wounds, major traumas in their life, and may exhibit features of personality disorders. So that is my bread and butter. That's what I do the most. And so being able to support the information that you guys are going to get on understanding diagnostics, understanding what it looks like and sounds like in your office, coming from someone who may exhibit narcissistic features, but also what your clients, who typically are the people recovering from narcissistic abuse, that's Marielle's specialty, is she really supports survivors of abuse, and particularly narcissism abuse and other personality abuse stories. And so being able to guide you and help you guys understand what you're looking at, what you're seeing, how that affects an individual and a family system and a partner relationship. So I'm pumped because this is exciting.
So, and I know when we talk about this subject matter, we have to start with what is narcissistic personality disorder, right? That is where we need to start. So can you give me a brief overview of this?
Yeah, so I think,
Brief.
yeah, very brief. Narcissists struggle to connect with their own shame, and then we'll project that outward, and you'll get all kinds of different weapons coming from projecting shame to the external world. Very simply. Now, I will take you into all the nitty gritty and nuances of that and the specific diagnostic through the DSM, because you need to understand all those things. But very simply, if you understand that component, you can understand from a compassionate lens, but also for your client who's recovering, and also an empathetic lens for someone experiencing those things.
Well, and I think when you say the weapons and that they externalize it, so the reason we're looking at the personality disorder is because we have to understand that to understand the weapons and to understand narcissistic abuse, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the DSM is this beautiful diagnostic book to help you understand things. And I want you to understand the language of it. But then you can take an understanding of something in language and then hear it come out of people's mouths, or how they display it and how other people may talk about it is not going to be that specific language. And then I don't know about you, but sometimes I read the DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, and gone, okay, what does that even mean? What does that look like? What does that sound like? And so I want to give you language around that. I want to give you experience around that. Like, start talking about what you may see or what you may experience, because TikTok University, the social media, people are throwing around this word narcissism like it's just common language that we need to be saying. And that can be offensive and also a bit enabling. So I want people to be really careful. The reason why we created this course is because we don't want people enabling narcissistic abuse. And we don't want people thinking that it's just okay to kind of being, everyone's kind of narcissistic. You know, people say that, and it's not that at all. People can be defensive.
Right.
People can be selfish. And then when we are those ways, how are we recovering from that? Or how do we own our own stuff and shift? And so I don't want people to allow people to be abusive, or have someone in their office who's talking about this chronic experience of selfishness from another person, or defensiveness from other people, or that projection of putting things on the external world. And we're just going, yeah, some people can be like that.
Well, yeah, like we would minimize the problem.
Right.
Like the point of this is so that we can identify exactly what it is, not from TikTok University where it's overused and sometimes wrong,
Yeah.
where it's actually we're identifying the problem accurately so that we can help empower our clients
Right.
and know how to navigate it and move through it.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
Do you think people understand narcissism in general?
Not really, but I'm sure you've experienced the same thing with OCD. There was a time when OCD became more acceptable as a diagnostic, and everyone goes, "Well, I'm a little OCD," because they were a little particular. Not the same thing. And right now, narcissism is that. All of our diagnoses have kind of gone through this phase where once people are starting to understand it, they see it everywhere and mislabel it. ADHD did it. Autism has done it, the neurodivergent stuff. People are always like, well, I'm forgetful. So am I. I think people want to try to connect to it to understand it. But I don't want people to walk away just labeling the world narcissists, or to go around and tell everyone they're gaslighting just because they had to tell you were wrong. There is a time and a place, and that an educated person with a particular degree can educate you on what you are experiencing. If you do have a personality disorder, and there's a lot of assessment, and there are instruments that we use to assess, like, is this what we're really looking at? And I don't want to dumb it down as someone was selfish with you or ugly with you, and so now we're labeling them
A narcissist. Well, yeah, it's way more complicated than that, right? There's a lot of patterns. I think with any personality disorder, it's these
right.
stubborn patterns that just keep happening again and again and again. And so it would be like a level of selfishness. It's not selfish moments. It's like that along probably with the manipulation. What did you call it? You didn't call it manipulation though. You called it, you had a word for it, but it wasn't manipulation. Um, huh?
I'm like, remember your words. I'm not sure.
I know. The two of us, absolutely not. But it's a lot of things together. It's going to be selfishness, like you were saying. It's a lot of different patterns. So
And I understand that in like motivation, when I'm looking at what am I seeing in someone, what am I not seeing in someone, is I'm looking a lot for that motivating factor. And we as clinicians have to be careful that we're not putting our own motivations onto someone. When we as clinicians do our own work and understand our own rules, we make up for feeling things like pride or selfishness, or what we think about others who experience those things. We have to be okay with seeing these dynamics in someone else. We have to be okay seeing these flaws in someone else to help them through it, instead of pretending that it's a one-off, or like, oh, you're just human and humans make mistakes.
I think that's a good point, because we do have an experience. If we have a narcissist in our office, you will have an experience. And to say that you're not is crazy, right? You're going to have your own feelings about it. But my big thing is like being able to stay present with my client, no matter what my feelings are, really important, right? So, because a lot of times we just kind of go to sleep, and then what good is that, right? So they're just doing their thing, and we're not calling it what it is, or naming it, or trying to find the right diagnosis for why we're having this experience. Yeah, I think the first course really is to build this foundation. And the foundation is, what is narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder? Because if we know what it is, then we know when our clients are being affected by it.
Yeah, so the foundation is to help you understand misinformation, misconceptions about narcissism, and how this can enable abuse, or perpetuate trauma if you're working with someone through their trauma, but you're not really catching on to what your client is saying. Then the abuse is allowed to continue to perpetuate. Or you may be inadvertently part of the trauma story now because you're validating the abuser in a way. So we want people to really understand this. For survivors of narcissistic abuse, like thoroughly understanding what narcissism is and these different components is very empowering. It's also shocking while empowering. For the first time, some people are able to go, oh, that is what I'm experiencing. But it can also be very validating in, okay, this is supposed to be painful and that is wrong. And so, and if you arm them with that, it can reduce the effects of the trauma as they're experiencing it and move them towards healing. And as therapists, I want you guys to be more confident in what you're seeing. Or, we talk about that gut feeling, like learning and leaning into trusting that and how to be exploratory through that, instead of assuming through that.
Well, and it's really an interesting point, because I think before I knew the word narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder, before I had really looked into it, I would just feel icky. That's what I would say. I feel icky. I've consulted with Marielle before, saying I feel icky. That's all I know. And I trust that because I don't feel that often. So when I feel it, it's something I'm observing in the way a client's talking. And feeling icky really isn't clinical, right? I mean, we can't really put that in my notes. So having the right words, I think, creates intentionality for the future. If I feel icky from an intuitive standpoint, and then I know what it is, so I can name it and empower my client, because just telling my client I feel icky, I mean, they trust me, but come on, that's not enough.
No, but there is a humanness in therapy that when you have a certain rapport with your client, you could say that. And then a more emotionally intelligent place is to be able to feel that and go, there's a sense of disgust rising up in me when you say this. And I want to lean into that and like understand, and I'm wondering how other people in your life might experience you when you say things like this. Or sometimes you might say, I have an urge to move away from you as you say those things. Or like I've laughed before in a session with someone and they're like, why are you laughing at me? I was like, what you're saying is catching me so off guard. I don't find it funny. I'm like caught off guard. And then we had a really good conversation with those types of things. So it is important. I want therapists to do their work too, and to be in consultation, to like honor what you're picking up in the room, but then you have to do your own work. So like you're honoring, I'm picking up and it's affecting me this way, and then to explore with your client. And that collateral stuff is helpful. And we want to be sure we're capturing and correctly identifying those things. Like, is that coming from you or is that my stuff? You have to be able to differentiate the two.
Well, and I think in narcissism specifically, it's so complex, right? It's not overt abuse. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's overt abuse followed by this like bonding type behavior afterwards. And if you don't know what it is, it's a hard thing to educate your client about. Like, I call it the apology tour. I'm like, oh, they're on the apology tour. But those like, and it's kind of funny now, but in the beginning when I started saying it, I remember feeling like, oh, I hope I'm right. Because I'm actually telling them that what their partner's doing that seems relationship building is something else. Um, it's a weird, I think if you don't know, y'all empowered me, right? Like if you don't really know what it is you're dealing with, you're going to get these intuitive, nuanced kinds of experiences and not have the right terminology to empower your client. So this course is really to empower them so they
Yes.
know.
Yes. This is a very instructional, conversational type of course. I'm not arming you with like the trauma treatments. I'm not taking you through EMDR and deep brain reorienting. Like I'm not giving you those things, but it is also psychotherapeutic tools of understanding these things, because when you can arm and educate your client about it, they can start their own healing, and how do I say, empowering work, like they can work through their own trauma and know that that's what they're working through. It's really powerful to be in the room with someone working through these things.
I love this. So basically, this course is to be able to name it and
Yep.
identify exactly what your client is going through and what you're observing. It's like the
Yes.
beginning of like those keys to freedom.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like every other therapy that you do, if you can't psychoeducate your client, then they're kind of going in blind, and then there's more hesitancies, there's less trust in the process. But in this case, it can be really harmful. And that the part where we don't want people to perpetuate abuse. I've just had several people in my office come in and be like, oh, well, like everybody kept saying like people are kind of like that. And I was like, I could see where that happens, right? Because if you're giving them one-off stories, most people want to see the good in other people. And we can okay things too much, if that makes sense. And there's a place that we just want to help your client in a different way. We want to help you understand how to let your client trust what they're feeling, and then sort out how to communicate that. And if they have a relationship, that they are able to communicate and have a reciprocal relationship with.
I love this. Well, and it makes me think of this statement that Marielle says a lot. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yes.
And so I think that is what you're discussing, and the nuances of narcissistic abuse that you're trying to like bring about through starting with narcissistic personality disorder and understanding that. Yeah. I'm
Yes.
excited.
I am excited too.
Yeah. So we will discuss more later. Thank you.
Thank you.